Live with CDP Sports Talk, a weekly sports and entertainment podcast sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet. Live on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Twitch, and LinkedIn. And on audio via Apple Podcast, Google Podcast, Spotify, Anchor FM, iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Radio Public, and TuneIn. Now, here's your host, Chris Palme.
Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Season 6, Episode 49, overall 324 of Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership here in Guelph at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles, or give them a call at 519-824-0210, or you can email them at info@barrycullen.com. As always, Live with CDP Sports Talk airs weeknights from 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on radio station WQEE 99.1 FM in Metro Atlanta, the home of Southern Talk and Sports. Good afternoon, everybody. Welcome to Live with CDP Sports Talk here on this Monday, October 16th, 2023. I'm looking forward to my guest today. This is his first time on my show, and his name, I hope I get it right, is Paul Bychko. He's a Toronto Blue Jays fan, but I call him a super fan, and he has a collection of over 10,000 Blue Jays items, including every single Blue Jays baseball card from 1977 to 1993, and he collects a majority of his stuff from the exhibition stadium days where I grew up, going to my first Major League Baseball game in Toronto on Friday, May 12th, 1978. And it was a Lower Secord baseball night. But I'm going to bring on my guest today, Paul, and we're going to talk about his Toronto Blue Jays collection and how he came about it, and the exhibition stadium days as well. Good evening, Paul. How you doing?
Hi there. How's it going, man?
Good. Well, thank you so much for coming on here. And to honor you, I put a background of Exhibition Stadium on for you.
That's awesome. I appreciate that.
No problem. I went to my first Major League Baseball game there on Friday, May 12th, 1978. It was Lower Secord baseball night, I remember, as a 6-year-old kid. Unfortunately, as a 6-year-old kid back then, I ended up playing with the baseball instead of keeping it in mint condition.
Yeah, that's unfortunately, that's the case for a lot of people. I actually have that ball in my case back there.
That's amazing. And I don't know if you can see this. I guess not. I got a virtual background on. I have a 1978 mint condition official Blue Jays schedule from Lower Secord, and I have a 78 Topps Jerry Garvin rookie card.
That's one of my favorite baseball cards. Yeah.
Yes. And I don't know if the schedule will show up on here or not. No, I guess not. But I wish I had collected Star Wars stuff back then, Blue Jay stuff, but unfortunately a lot of it when I got older got thrown out. And it's just awesome, your collection, and I really enjoy checking you out on TikTok and your Blue Jays videos.
Yeah, it's I've been collecting for so long, and you know what? Originally, before I moved into my house, I had it all in kind of like storage bins and whatnot, and I couldn't wait to display it. And originally, my whole room down here was 4 separate rooms, and I knocked down all the walls, and I ended up creating all this wall space and, shelving and trophy cases and stuff like that, just to kind of fill it all up to properly display it all. So I'm glad I'm glad I was able to.
Gonna be honest, Paul, you have more of a Blue Jay memorabilia collection than I see at the Rogers Center Skydome. And it's sad because when you go to ballparks in the States, you see Hall of Fames for those teams and memorabilia, and there's not much there at the Rogers Center other than a Ted Rogers statue and the level of excellence.
I know it's unfortunate. I wish they would do more in terms of having display for their history. I actually spoke to Marty Starkman at the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame induction back the past June. And
I was there too.
You were there?
Yeah, and I interviewed Jesse Barfield, John Olerud, Rich Harden.
Yeah. I had to see Barfield because he was probably my favorite Blue Jay ever, and I had to see Olerud as well. And But anyways, yeah, I spoke to Marnie, and just to kind of put the bug in her ear and be like, hey, if you need somebody to donate anything, or if you want, because I want my collection kind of shown. It's kind of sad that it's kind of sitting, in a basement in Northern Ontario, without many people to kind of look at it. I want other people to enjoy it as much as I do. And she said she would, actually, I emailed her. She said she would email me back. I haven't heard anything back yet, but I'm hoping, to have something to do with them one day in terms of, a display or something that somebody, would appreciate at the
Absolutely, yeah. I was there in June because I did some media work with Scott Crawford for the Baseball Hall of Fame, and Jesse Barth was somebody I wanted to meet. And he, you know how sometimes these guys can portray themselves. He's
Yep,
exactly what he was back in the '80s. And
yep.
his son Josh, I talked to John Olerud, and it was great. So we, unfortunately, I didn't know you back then, but yeah, that was a great experience. That was my first time to the
Oh,
Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame in St. Mary's. I was originally at the one at Exhibition Grounds in
okay.
1987.
Yeah. Yeah, you know what? I've been going for a few years now. I watched Tony Fernandez get inducted, Tom Hankey. All in all, I think I've probably gone to about 5 or 6 of them. I love that area. St. Mary's, Ontario is gorgeous. And it's always a thrill to go down there every June and just to mingle with all the Canadian baseball fans, and just to see all the old Expos players, old Blue Jays players, and kind of just it's so intimate. You get to just talk to to Pat Gillick or Paul Beeston's wandering around, or anybody, Howie Starkman. So it's cool. It's an experience. I absolutely look forward to it every year. Yeah.
Well, hopefully I'll see you there again next year. And it's about a 35-minute drive for me, but I've been lucky. I've been to the Baseball Hall of Fame in Cooperstown and the one in St. Mary's. And you're right, it's absolutely great. It's a must see. And I'm hoping to get back there again. One thing I wanted to ask you, Paul, and Scott couldn't say much. And I know this man is very humble, but Jerry Howarth should be in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. 36 years behind the mic with the Blue Jays. I don't know how many games, 3,000, 4,000 games. When you think of Blue Jays baseball, you think of Tom Cheek and Jerry Howarth. And to me, Jerry should be in the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame for his contributions and also on the level of excellence, in my opinion.
Oh, for sure. Like Tom Cheek, I know is in there. Like it's only, I think, a matter of time before Jerry gets in there, as well as he should be. Him and Tom were probably the greatest radio broadcasting duo I've ever listened to, since I started listening when I was a kid. And I'm with you there too with the level of excellence. Jerry definitely should be up there, alongside Tom. Um, Hopefully soon. I know there was rumors, of him going on it, along with Fred McGriff and Tom Hankey. I know that they were mentioning as well. But it's unfortunate that this isn't a yearly thing for the Blue Jays on the level. It should be. It seems like they only do it maybe every, like, I don't know, like 4 or 5 years, if that. It seems to be very sporadic, and it should be consistent. And I don't know. I'm not criticizing, but I think there's a lot more that they could do to honor their history there. So hopefully that'll change. But yeah.
Absolutely, because I talked to Joe Carter on Instagram, and I know Joe's a humble type guy too. He's a great guy, but he should have a statue there as well. We could do a whole podcast on what the Jays should do to remember their history as well. But I was going to ask you this, Paul. I'm going to put you on the spot. What was one of your favorite games that Tom and Jerry called on the radio?
Honestly, if I had to say, I'd say the '93 Game 6 World Series game when Joe hit it out. That one, just because of Tom's call, it was so authentic, and it just, you could tell it was like just years of them. Obviously it was their second time winning in a row, but just the passion that came out of his voice. And I heard this story later. I think that Jerry allowed Tom to call that inning that Joe Carter hit the home run. So it was, like, all in all around, I think that's my all-time favorite game. I was listening to that game and watching it on TV simultaneously, I remember jumping up and down when Joe hit the home run, and because I think it was in grade 8 at the time. Everybody in my house was sleeping, and I woke everybody up. But yeah, I think it would be Game 6, '93. Yeah.
And also too, the drive of '85 and the '87 series against the Tigers. You know what? I tell Twins fans this, they don't like it. I said, you know what? The Twins they got hot at the right time, but the Jays Tiger series in '87 to me was the real World Series. Two of the best teams in baseball and 7 one-run games. Amazing.
That was such an intense finish to the season. I had never seen anything like it, and that was honestly one of my first full seasons of watching Blue Jays baseball when I was about 7, and I had never seen like a rivalry, like that. Just the so much going on between the two teams. Like every pitch you're kind of hanging on, and that 1-0 game that the Detroit won, was it Tanana took the win?
Yes.
Over Key, I want to say, when
Larry Herndon hit that home run
just over the fence, and it was a killer. And for the Blue Jays to lose that many games straight at the end, it honestly wasn't like, unfortunately it happened that way, but their whole season they had done so well, and it was such a heartbreaker though, because you're like, there's no way they could lose it in the end, and they did. But that, honestly, you hit it right on. That was the World Series. That was the whole playoffs right there, honestly. Yeah.
And that rivalry was the best rivalry in baseball. You had Morse against Steve. You
Yep.
had, Kirk Gibson, Lou Whitaker, Trammell. By the way, I know this is a Jays show, but Lou Whitaker should be in the Baseball Hall of Fame.
Oh, definitely. Yeah. There's so many people that I don't know if it's due to politics, or what, that should be in the hall. Like I was reading a thing earlier today about Dave Steve. How is he not in the hall? He's one of the best pitchers of the 1980s, behind Jack Morris. And I remember reading a thing saying something about in 1985 he like outpitched Morris and didn't get one single Cy Young vote. So I don't know if it had to do with him being a Toronto Blue Jay, or if they didn't like his attitude at the time, because he was relatively cocky back then. But it's sometimes you kind of shake your head that some players aren't considered more than they should. Even Tony Fernandez, he did so many good things, and he was he was around for so long and played with so many different teams, 4-time Blue Jay, and you kind of wish he'd be considered for something, but I won't even.
I was going to say, if Fernandez played in the States back in the 80s, he would have won more Gold Gloves and probably would have gone in the Hall of Fame. Steve, I really think he would have got in. I think the problem was he got hurt. His career ended a little bit too early. And also the amount of innings he pitched early on. I know in 1982 he had 19 complete games, but he also had some teams with bad bullpens back in the early 80s. I think he probably lost maybe 30 to 40 games approximately from the poor bullpen. The bullpen for the Jays didn't get good until 85, 86 when they got Hanky.
Yep, no doubt. They needed that closer, and Hanky was that guy, and then they finally could put it together. Yeah.
Speaking of the Baseball Hall of Fame too, Morse and Trammell didn't get in until 2018, and I know part of the reason with Morse is because Morse was role like Steve. Morse and Steve are actually very similar, very competitive, and they're there to win games, not be your friend. And
exactly.
It would have been nice to, I would still love to see Steve get in, but also just to get back to Jerry for a minute there, I really think he should be in consideration for the Ford C. Frick Award for broadcasters for his 36 years.
Yep, I know. I know Cheek won it, and I don't even know where he's at in terms of the status of being of winning that award. To be honest with you, he should be, but I don't know. Again, I don't know how the voting works and whatnot. It's unfortunate that he's not, but hopefully one day we'll see what happens, I guess.
I'm assuming you have his book. I have his book. He actually signed it for me. I slipped for it. And it was a great book. Reading a lot of great stories and stuff like that as well.
Oh, it's funny because I wanted to buy the audio version because it's actually voiced by him too, just to listen to him talk. You know what I mean? Again, about just to tell the story of his life on it. But yeah, I have the book as well. I got it. I actually sent it to him to get signed for me, and he signed it for me through the mail. So that was nice of him. Super.
And
Yeah.
absolutely. And after our show tonight, I'll send you a link to my show with Jerry. It was about a year and a half, 2 years ago. But I reached out to him and he came on and talked to me for an hour. And it was just amazing. And he's one of the nicest people you'll meet. I know he's a Niners fan because I'm an Eagles fan, but he's just a great guy. And I love his stories. And like I said, even though I'm a Tigers fan, I love the history of Major League Baseball teams, especially the Blue Jays, because I grew up in Oakville in the late 70s and early 80s. Quick story about Damaso Garcia. I met him in 1980. They had an open practice at Oakville Park or baseball diamond there. And as an 8-year-old kid, he took my hat and he wore it. And then he came back and gave it to me. And from that moment after, Damaso Garcia from 1980 to 1986 was my favorite Blue Jay player.
It's funny you say that because I'm watching a game from 85 and he's up at bat right now.
Awesome.
Yeah.
And he unfortunately he passed away recently.
Actually, I know. You know what? I'll show you something quick.
Okay. Hang on, folks. Paul's just going to show us something, but he's got over 10,000 Blue Jay items. It's a bat, is it?
This is a game.
That's Damaso's bat?
Yeah, that's from, I want to say it was from 86, I think. And yeah, this is Damaso's Cooper bat.
That is awesome. And like I said, amazing. Obviously, nobody has that burn uniform. Unfortunately, his time in Toronto, I guess, didn't end so well with Jimmy Williams, who I thought was not the right guy to replace Bobby Cox. I know Cito Gaston's got the 2 World Series, and obviously he's probably the greatest manager in Jays history. But to me, Bobby Cox and that 85 team should have been the first Jays team to be in the World Series and probably win their first World Series in 85.
Well, based on the fact that they changed the format of the ALCS to 7 games that year, they would have won it. But the thing about Bobby Cox and being followed by Jimmy Williams, how do you follow Bobby Cox?
It's not easy. No.
You could have put anybody in there and you wouldn't have been happy because it's not Bobby. Like Bobby was like the guy. And it's, you know what, like, I didn't mind Jimmy as a manager, but you could tell some of the players didn't like him as a manager, and I think it showed. And then obviously, ultimately, that's what led to his, firing and then being replaced by Cito in '89. But you know what? Like, as I said, Bobby was the guy, and obviously, when he went to Atlanta, how many years, did he stay there, and how many championships did they win because of him, right? Like, he's the probably the best manager probably in the history of the game, if not one of them.
Paul, this is kind of a hearsay question, but if they had beaten the Tigers and won that American League East in '87, do you think that buys Jimmy Williams a couple more years as Blue Jays manager instead of being let go in May '89 for Cito Gaston?
I think it had a pretty good impact, yeah. I think it had a pretty good impact. And then that kind of changes the whole landscape for the '88 season, right? Because that's when they experimented with the whole Sil Campusano thing, and then DHing George Bell and all that nonsense that kind of took away from what was going on with the club, right? It was almost like a soap opera going on. But yeah, I think it definitely had an impact. It's too bad it went down like that, but hey, that's baseball, right? And I'm glad though, the way it happened the way it did, just based on the fact that Cito came in '89 and totally turned around that team from such a flat start and and they ended up winning the pennant.
Go ahead.
What are you going to do?
What are your thoughts? Obviously, I think the end of '88, beginning '89 was kind of a change of direction for the Blue Jays, especially when they traded Jesse Barfield to the Yankees for Al Leiters. And what were your thoughts on that trade and Jesse's time in Toronto as a Blue Jay?
Honestly, based on the fact that I was 9 years old at that time, I was devastated. Just based on the fact that I love Jesse Barfield. He was my favorite Blue Jay. besides Dave Steve. And to see him go, it was devastating to me, to be honest. And at that time, I didn't really know of Al Leiter. I know right after they got him, he didn't really come around for them until like in the early 90s, like 92, 93. I know he had a lot of, excuse me, a lot of blister problems. But at the time, I didn't see the value in the trade. I guess you could see it later on when Leiter kind of found himself. But as I said, I was gutted when that happened. I love that guy.
And he was part of considered one of the best outfields in baseball in the 80s with Bell, Mosby, and Barfield. And it wasn't long after Barfield was traded. Bell left after 1990 to go to Chicago to the Cubs. White Sox or Cubs in 90?
I think he went to the Cubbies, and then I think he went to the White Sox, if I'm not mistaken.
And then I know Shaker Lloyd Mosby went to Detroit, but as much as I'm a Tigers fan, it did not look right seeing Lloyd Mosby in a Tiger uniform, just like Lance Parrish as our Toronto Blue Jay or Jack Morris. It's just back then certain guys belonged in certain uniforms, but it is a business.
Well, and the thing is too, like when you see, pictures of Ernie Whitt and he's wearing like a Baltimore Orioles uniform or like Atlanta Braves, and you're like, no, that's so wrong. No.
Absolutely. Hey, I'm going to get into some questions with you, Paul. Can you tell my audience just a little bit about yourself? I'm out of Guelph, but like I said, my show is international and also on WQEE 99.1 FM. Just tell us a little bit about yourself and when did you become a Blue Jay fan and who influenced you a little bit being a Blue Jays fan as well?
I started watching baseball overall in '86 when I was about 6 years old. I remember asking my dad because I had never seen it before. I think it was the NLCS that was on. I think it was the Astros playing the Mets, and not really understanding much of the game. And I started kind of watching it. I hadn't really known about the Blue Jays until really about a year later. And honestly, it was a funny story how it came about was because I don't know if you remember the fire safety Blue Jays cards that they gave out at the
yes.
I went on a field trip to the fire station, and my mom was one of the chaperones to go on the field trip, and she ended up bringing home all these different packs of the '87 fire safety cards for me. And I remember looking at them and just being in awe. And I'm looking at them, I was just like, wow, like these guys, look cool, whatever. And I started slowly watching the games. I remember there's a show called Blue Jays Banter that was on every week. And I just slowly fell in love, with watching them play. And I started kind of collecting stuff. Like my parents would buy me, like the plastic Blue Jays glove with the rubber ball. And I remember we're going to Florida and I got the batting glove. I still have it all in my case. I'm actually looking right at it. I got the Shoppers Drug Mart calendars.
I had the original ones from 77 and 78. Unfortunately, back then they were put in the garbage can when the seasons were over. I really wish I'd kept them.
I got the 77 on my wall over here, and I got the other ones on my ceiling back here. Yeah. But yeah, honestly, I look forward to every year just watching them play. And, you kind of just you grow up with the game. And that's exactly what happened with me. And I just slowly started accumulating more and more things and cards. And, I remember one day it hit me. I'm just like, man, I should just focus just on Blue Jays. Cause I'd, get the packs of 87 tops and I'd sort through them. And I'm like, kind of like, and yes. Then I just all the Blue Jays in the pile. Right. And I just kept on going from there. So now I have like 12 4-inch binders full of them and tried to get as many as I could. Right. So yeah.
I have a Garth Orge rookie card along with Lou Whitaker's rookie card, and I have Dave Steve's second-year card in mint condition. So even though I'm not a Jays fan, I still collect stuff like that. And Dave Steve, to me, is one of the greatest Blue Jays of all time. They all talk about the late Roy Halladay, and he's obviously great. But to me, Dave Steve is still the greatest pitcher in Blue Jays history, in my opinion.
Oh, me too. I agree with you. And it's funny because I ended up just picking up Doc's debut game ticket stub when I think it was September 20th, 1998, when he was playing against Tampa. And I think that was the only game that Halliday and Steve ever pitched in the same game. And because I think Doc only pitched 2 games that year, and that's when Steve came back to the club. So I really wanted that ticket, and I ended up just picking it up on eBay. I got it here somewhere. I have this like bin of like tickets of obscure rare feats and stuff like that, and it's kind of in this bin right now. I just put it in there.
I'm going to put you on the spot with this question, Paul. Obviously, the Jays don't retire a lot of numbers, but do you feel number 1 and 37 should be retired at some point?
Oh, definitely. I'm surprised they haven't already. And just this, it's weird for me to see, especially with 37. Like Teo had 37. I want to say that Grilly had 37. There's been other like pitchers that I've had, and it doesn't seem right, because when you see, the font and you see the 37, you think of Dave Steve. Same with number 1. And it's actually funny you say that, because when I was watching the Blue Jays this season, and when the Blue Jays got Hicks, he comes out on the mound, he's wearing 12. And I'm looking at a second here. And that was Alomar's number that apparently they unretired.
They've ghosted him. Him.
Right. So it was kind of like, oh, I had no idea. And I thought it was kind of not bad, but kind of like cheese ball, not to kind of like, do something. Like, I get it. There's a lot of stuff that happened with that whole story. But it's just sad that they kind of reneged on something that they had done for that player, and now it's kind of like fair game for anybody to have the number 12 again. You know what I mean? And it's funny because not even a couple of years before all that stuff happened with Robbie, he was voted like the number 1 player of all time. You know what I mean?
The franchise history, the most talented player. And you know what? The level of excellency, it's like the Hall of Fame. There's guys that are in the Hall of Fame, or the Buffalo Bills still have O.J. Simpson on their Wall of Fame. I wouldn't blame them for taking him out. What Robbie did outside of baseball, if the Jays want to distance themselves from him, that's their decision. But what he did on the field shouldn't be just ghosted away and forgotten about.
I think so too. And honestly, and just to be fair, when they did retire Robbie's number 12, I didn't really agree with that, because Ernie was 12 and he was the longest original Blue Jay. So I kind of was just like, what about Ernie? So it kind of was bittersweet for me when they did that. But I guess it's, like I said, I guess the 12 is fair game now. So
we brought this up as well. We talked about this earlier. Thoughts on Fred McGriff, and do you really think he should? Obviously, the Baseball Hall of Famer, had a great career. Do you feel he put enough time in Toronto to be on the level of excellence in the future?
Oh, that's a good question. I love Crime Dog. I'd love to see him up there. If it happens, I don't think it will. Based on what you said, I think he was only there from like 86 to 90. But he had great years when he was there. He, led the American League in home runs in '89 with 36. And I think, he was instrumental in creating the team that they would eventually become because of that big trade with San Diego, right? So hard to say. I'd like to see him up there. If it happens, I doubt it, but I'd like to see it. But there's so many guys I'd like to see up there. Yeah.
Since we're talking about McGriff and his impact with the Jays and that trade, what were your thoughts in 1990? I think it was December 1990 when they traded McGriff and Fernandez, 2 Blue Jays stars, to San Diego for Joe Carter and back then little known Roberto Alomar.
Yeah, when I remember hearing, I was 10 when I heard about that trade, and I wasn't really familiar that much with the National League, so I didn't know much about the Padres, let alone Joe Carter and what he had been doing at the time, because he played a lot of the his career Indians. But and Robbie Alomar, I had never really even heard of at that time. So when the trade was announced with trading away McGriff and Tony Fernandez, again one of my all-time favorites, I was just kind of like, what the hell are these guys doing? You know what I mean? But obviously they had a plan. They knew what they were doing. They executed it, and it worked out perfectly for them. But those were my favorites. But again, it's a business. It's heartless sometimes. I know based on an interview, I think that Gillick did. I think he said his wife was just like mad at him for making that trade because she loved those guys. But I get it. But as a 10-year-old boy, hated every second of it, and I was just like, hey, there's no way you can replace those guys, but they did. And Fernandez came back, and he won it with them in '93, and then he came back again in '98, then he came back again in 2001. So it's not like we saw the last of them, right? But
Do the Jays win back-to-back World Series if that trade's never made?
if it weren't made,
Yeah.
I don't think they would have got to the place that they did without that trade being made. No, they needed Carter's bat and defense, and it's not only that trade though. Everything they put together though, when they got Devo from the Angels, when they got Morris from Minnesota, they got Winfield. It was just a whole. They knew what they were doing, and they knew that was the time, and they put it all together. Obviously, it didn't happen for them in '91. Everything kind of came to that pinnacle in '92 and then '93, even though they lost a lot of guys and had to replace who left. But I think it was not only that trade. I think it was just the combination of all the moves that they did make, and that was obviously thanks to Pat Gillick, spending some of the money and making the trades and signing the free agents that they needed to fill in the gaps to get them to the next step.
Also, at the time, Jays fans didn't want to hear this, but I think their playoff setbacks in '85 and then what happened in '87 and '88 kind of set the emotions for what happened in 1990 and going forward.
Yeah, I think they knew. Obviously, they were well aware they were falling short. They didn't do too well in the '89 ALCS against Oakland. They didn't get too far in the '91. It was against Minnesota, right? So something had to give, and I think they knew that they needed to get over that hump, and then they did it. It's kind of like how it is now, though. Like you see the team that's together, and they're getting to the postseason, but they can't get past the wild card. It's kind of like the same idea. It's kind of like, okay, what do we need to do now to bring us to the next step? And it's just a matter of them making those trades or signing the free agents that they know will fill the holes to get them to the next to get them to the next level. But when you have guys like Merrifield, and I don't know who the announcer was, but they almost refer to him as he's almost like a Molitor. I'm like, no, Merrifield is nowhere near what a Molitor was. And so I think the caliber of guys that they could be getting could be a lot better. And I'm not disrespecting Merrifield a lot. I think he's a hell of a player. I just don't think he's gonna get them over that hump. And I think they need to make a lot more moves just to get them to the next level. And because I'm honestly tired of watching them fall in the wild card. So.
And you know what? Pat Gillick back in the '80s had a reputation of being standby Pat, not wanting to pull the trigger. He gave the team that he built in the late '70s and '80s multiple chances to win, and they did win and progress. But at some point, like I said, by '89, '90, he had to make the trades, and he had to do what he had to do to get this franchise into the World Series and actually win it, not once but twice. And I think Shapiro and Atkins are getting to this point now. You got to do something, because this team's had a number of years with this same core, and they haven't been able to get out of the wild card round. And they haven't won a playoff game since 2016.
I know, and if they stay the way they are, it's that fan base is they're smart, and the fan base is gonna be like, hey, well, this team isn't cutting it, and they're just they're gonna kind of desert them. It's unfortunate, but it's just what happens. They're just gonna stop going to the games if they're not putting a winning team on the field. So it's just a matter of time. I hope Shapiro and Atkins do. I hope they make some moves. I hope they keep Hicks, and instrumental players like that. But again, they kind of seem to have their own plan. I don't know how well it's going to work out for them, but I'm hoping the best. Obviously, you wish them the best. That's this is my team. I hope they do well, but I guess we'll see next year. But can only tell in February when spring training happens again and how the team's looking.
Fingers crossed. And Paul, I'm just going to get to some more questions. Are you okay for time for a few more questions and stuff?
Yep.
Okay. Do you remember your first ever Blue Jays game you attended, and was it at CNE Stadium or was it at the Skydome then?
You know what? You're gonna laugh at this. I did not see my first Blue Jays game live until I was 23. So that would have been around 2003, and I went with my dad, believe it or not. I live, like I said, in Northern Ontario. I never really had a lot of opportunities to get down south to go to any Jays games. That is honestly one of my regrets in life, is not seeing a game at the X. I would have loved that. But the only thing I could do now is, go to the parking lot where all the bases are and, run around and like an idiot and, take pictures by home plate there. But yeah, it was honestly, it became a thing between me and my father. We'd go down starting in about 2003. Let's see, the thing is, life happened, eh? Like, I grew up, school, university happened, girls happened. And it kind of just, life took over. And then I kind of got back to it when I was in my 20s again. And you kind of forget how much you love it. And so every year I'd start, going to the games, make a trip with my dad every year to go see the alumni. I remember they had the alumni weekend, and then they would do flashback Fridays and things like that. So just to see the old players, they would do dinners and stuff like that me and my dad would go to. They did the reunion dinner of the World Series, and I think it was 2009. So I try to make it like a year thing with my dad. We go on road trips and just, go see the Jays. And that's kind of what I did. But yeah, like I said, it's sad, but yeah, my first one was until about 2003, when they weren't exactly the greatest team. They were really good in 2003, actually, because they had Doc, they had Vernon Wells, and the guys like that. But after that, they kind of went down that,
Yeah.
a little bit, because then you get into the years where they just did, like the only guy that they had, that was good was Halliday. They had Burnett, but outside of that, it was just like guys like Shea Hillenbrand, and guys that kind of weren't cutting the mustard, right? So, but I still love them. I still watch them, and but yeah, that was my first game.
My exhibition stadium memories. Obviously, my late father took me to my first game there in '78, May 12th, 1978, against Seattle, Laura Secord night, and also Blue Jays photo day in 1979, 1980. As an 8-year-old kid, I obviously like the Tigers, but to go down to that stadium where Major League Baseball was and to go on that turf, I know it was not very good turf back then, to meet these guys. And I met Lloyd Mosby, Garth Orge, Alfredo Griffin, Damaso Garcia. It was a big deal back then. And to me, as much as I loved hockey back then, I think my love of baseball and actually the Blue Jays were ahead of hockey at that time.
All right, yeah, it's funny, like, about walking on that turf. I think it was literally like a thin layer of artificial turf, and then underneath it was just pretty much cement. So imagine diving on that one. You see the guys diving in the outfield, and it's just like, oh, how did you not crack ribs?
I'm convinced it shortened Bell's, Mosby's, and Barfield's careers by a couple of years
Oh,
playing on
definitely.
that turf.
Oh, and yeah, and the weather, but just alone in the exhibition stadium, playing 80 some games a year there, yeah, it drastically affected their careers, no doubt. Yeah.
And you know what's funny is BMO Field is built pretty well on the same site as Exhibition Stadium, but it's a different direction of field than the Exhibition Stadium was. But they haven't had the weather games or the weather games like they did at Exhibition Stadium. And for some reason, they don't have the problem with Seagulls at BMO Field, the home of the FC and the Argos, like they did at Exhibition Stadium, because that was one of the things I always remember when I went to Exhibition Stadium was the Seagulls
Yeah, yeah, it's the Seagulls and the awful
incident.
in the cold. And I remember, I think it was the 82 Grey Cup game. That was the game where they decided, you know what, we gotta build the dome stadium. And I want to say it was like Paul Godfrey and Bill Davis talking about it, and then eventually putting in the plan to make the dome stadium and the different location, because just obviously they're looking around, they're playing a mud bowl in front of them, and the weather is absolutely disgusting. They're like, well, we can't play baseball here that much longer, right? So yeah.
I still miss them on that site. I guess because of my childhood. As soon as I
Oh,
go back to that site, I think of the 70s and 80s and all the great players they had on that franchise starting up. And it's where the team was founded. This is
oh,
where they came. And now, Paul, also, I wanted to bring this up too. They were very close. I was only 4 at the time. I didn't realize this. They were very, very close to becoming the Toronto Giants instead of the Blue Jays in 76.
yeah. You know what? That's very interesting how that all unfolded and how they landed the team. Initially with Godfrey, getting landing the San Francisco Giants, and it's funny you say that because I looked down at my ball and I have a ball here that's signed by this 1976 San Francisco Giants, and there's a couple guys missing on it that were noticeable, and I had one of the guys sign it almost Toronto Giants on there.
Wow.
And, but yeah, you know what? I think it was a blessing in disguise when all that stuff happened with the mayor of San Francisco when they couldn't, make the final deal to get them there, and then obviously, going into the American League, and I think the Major League Baseball owing one to Seattle because of what happened with the pilots, and I think everything, happened for a reason, and I'm glad it did, and I'm glad they got into the American League, and um, actually, it's funny because I have when Godfrey was wanting to land a team and talking to the Labatt people about increasing their market share and blah blah blah, the whole business of beer and stuff like that, and trying to get a baseball team involved. That conversation had happened at the '73 Grey Cup, and I have a program from the football game signed by Bill Davis, who was the premier at the time, and Paul Godfrey, and I had Paul Godfrey sign it. The conversation that brought baseball to Toronto, because essentially at that game they kind of came together and just like, hey, we need to have a club. We need to create this whole atmosphere of what was happening in Montreal with the Expos, and so yeah, I got that signed, and yeah, it was one of the conversations that kind of got the ball rolling on where they should have baseball, at the exhibition stadium site, and how they should go about it, right? And so, yeah, I thought that was a cool thing. But yeah.
There's actually some Toronto Giants stuff out there. Do you have any items like that, like a Toronto Giants hat or a shirt or a letter figurehead, I think?
I have I have a I don't know if you could I don't know if I could turn this, but if you could see on this wall over here.
Awesome. This is amazing.
But you
They
can
should,
this is just the graphic of the Toronto Giants signed by the Labatt guy Don McDougall and Paul Godfrey, who landed the club. There's a patch there. I also have this. There's like a photo of Paul Godfrey. Let me move this back again. Sorry.
just amazing. Your man cave. They should take that out of your house and put it in the Rogers Center as a Blue Jays Hall of Fame
I wish.
exhibit.
But this hat is actually as I was saying, there's a picture of actually it's on my wall, Paul Godfrey. Hold on, let me take this off.
No problem. Paul's just going to be back in a second. He has one of the biggest Blue Jays collections out there.
This is Paul Godfrey when they landed the San Francisco Giants, and if you notice his hat, and it's a G and almost morphs into a T to be the Toronto Giants. And I had him sign it, but I love the hat, and so I had one kind of like custom made with that logo, and I had it, Don McDougall and Paul Godfrey kind of sign the brim of it, just to, I don't know, as a cool like thing. But I'm very weird in my taste and like the obscurity of stuff.
That's
So
obscured. That's obscured, definitely.
so I like to, try to get as many things that are like obscure and rare to me, and in terms of the history of the club, right? So
Since we have you on that subject, and that was one of my questions, what are some of your other obscured, hard to find items that you have from the Toronto Blue Jays?
um I have this. It's this is when they were naming the Blue Jays. At the time it was the Metro, Baseball Limited. and they had put the contest together with the at various locations in Toronto with the little ballots to put input what your idea was to name the Toronto Ball Club, and they got I think it was 10,000 ballots in, and I think only 154 mentioned the Blue Jays, and they ended up picking the Blue Jays name as the for the club. So this is one of the ballots, and actually I have right after they named them in '76, they had an event down at the exhibition stadium grounds at the CNE, and Mickey Mantle was there, Joe DiMaggio was there, just to kind of build up the hype of the club. And I have them on my wall, actually, a thing that says, I met Mickey Mantle, I met Joe DiMaggio at the CNE. And I have the cards from that they signed, along with a picture of the guy that won the contest of naming the Blue Jays. And I think
Do you remember
from a Etobicoke or something. Anyways, I have it all in play. Yeah.
I was curious. I wonder what he received for naming the team. Did he get season tickets for a year or lifetime Blue Jay tickets? Or I was just curious about that.
Yeah, I want to say it was as a trip to spring training, and I want to say it was season tickets to for the first 10 years or something like that. Don't quote me on that, but it was something to that effect. I'm trying to remember the guy's name. I'm looking at his picture right now, but I can't remember his name. Yeah. But I know he was a dentist in the Etobicoke. Yeah.
Awesome. Hey, and before the Blue Jays came to Toronto, Toronto's always had a long history of baseball with the Triple A's international Toronto Maple Leafs over the years as well. Do you have any Maple Leaf stuff or any collectibles from the old Maple Leaf Stadium before they tore it down?
I don't, however, and I'm trying to look for it on my wall, but I know that in the history of the two Toronto clubs, the Toronto Maple Leafs and the Toronto Blue Jays, there was two players that played for both, and that was Phil Roof and Rico Cardi.
Did not know that.
Both on a ball inscribed that says, that they played for both the Leafs and the Blue Jays. I'm trying to find it. I'm trying to do a quick scan of all the baseballs on my wall, and I'm not seeing it right now. Yeah.
And Sparky Anderson played. I think he played or managed the Toronto Maple Leafs as well.
Yeah, I want to say that he was a manager for them. Yeah, way back when. Yeah, for sure. Yeah, you know what? I tried to concentrate my collection specifically on the exhibition stadium years of the Blue Jays. There's so much. If I were to focus on Toronto baseball, I'd be probably out of a lot more money, and I would. So I try to limit it as much as I can, but in terms of other obscure items, I'll just share one more. I'm a big fan of the whole Canadian baseball thing too, with the crossover of the Blue Jays and the Expos, and all in all, there was 4 Blue Jays to just play four Canadians to play for the Blue Jays and the Expos, and I have them all in this ball. So they were Sean Hill, Rob Ducey, Denny Boucher, and Matt Stairs. And I like obscure, so I'd like to kind of collect stuff that I know that nobody would think of, or nobody has, kind of one of ones, right? So that's another cool piece that I thought I'd in my collection. So.
And I was a bat boy for the Guelph Royals intercounty baseball team, I think back in the mid 80s. And Rob Ducey played 1 year with Guelph, and Fergie Jenkins was the manager pitcher for the London Majors. And I met Fergie then, and I didn't ask for his autograph back then, but I remember the words he spoke to me. He goes, "Hey son, I need a tongue depressor because my cleats were all mud covered." And I still remember that conversation, and I told that to Fergie 38 years later. And Rob Ducey is a Cambridge, Ontario native. Played for the Cambridge Bulldogs. Yep, I can hear you.
Sorry, I think my mic just went off.
Okay, no problem. Things happen. So we're just waiting for Paul to get back here.
Yeah, can you hear me now? Oh,
yeah,
I don't know if clear, I can hear
Paul. You. Can you hear me now, Paul?
Mm.
Okay, just just a technical difficulty with Paul. Just bear with us. Paul and I were talking about his Blue Jays memorabilia collection, and he focuses on
There
the
we go.
years
I
from
got you.
Exhibition Stadium. You
I got
back,
you.
Paul? Okay.
Yeah. Sorry.
I was just mentioning Rob Ducey was from Cambridge, Ontario, which is 15 minutes from my house. He played for the Cambridge Bulldogs, I believe, played a year for the Guelph Royals, and it was a big deal back then when he made the Blue Jays roster.
Yeah, and actually, it's funny because he hit his first home run at the 10 home run game that the Blue Jays had in September of '87
7 against the Orioles.
against the Orioles. Yeah, and yeah, that was his first major league home run, and it was a part of the breaking the record. I think was at 9, and it's funny you brought up. I brought it up because I have a ball signed by all of the Orioles pitchers that gave up home runs to the Blue Jays.
Wow.
And it's also inscribed by Fred McGriff that says MLB record 10 Jays home runs, 5 Orioles pitchers, 9/14/87. So yeah.
How difficult was that to get that ball signed?
Very, very, very tricky because those Orioles pitchers are very hard to find.
1987, and I still believe that's the Major League Baseball record to
It
this
is.
day. 10 home runs in a game.
Yeah. And it's funny, like I said, some of the players are so obscure and you try to track them down, you try to find them, and it's tricky. I'm working on a ball right now of all the players that were involved in the Fred McGriff trade when the Blue Jays got Fred McGriff from New York originally. And that was the obscure, like this is Tommy Dodd and Dale Murray.
Murray, yes.
And Mike, I think it's Mike Morgan and
yes.
Dave Collins and then Fred McGriff. So I'm trying to put that together. I only have Tommy Dodd and Dale Murray on it so far. So I gotta try to get the other guys.
Dave Collins to this day still holds the Blue Jays team record for 60 stolen bases in a year. 1984. Do you? Yep. I thought they traded him a little bit too soon. They traded him, I believe, after the '84 season for Bill Cottle, and that trade did not work out, unfortunately. Back then, everybody thought Cottle was going to solve their bullpen issues, but unfortunately, some trades don't always work out. And Pat Gillick, if I could ever speak to him, would tell you that as well.
Yeah, Bill Cottle. It was funny because I was talking to their former trainer Tommy Craig, and it was just like it's almost just like he lost his ability on the plane ride from Oakland over to Toronto. It's just like he just forgot or couldn't be effective anymore, and it was just awful. And it was a shame that they let Collins go for somebody that didn't pan out as hard as Cottle didn't. But yeah, Dave Collins. Actually, I have that a ball signed by him where he put 60 stolen bases, 84. But that's still a record. That's right. Yeah.
Were you able to get a Doug Alt signed autograph before he passed away much too soon as well?
Yeah, I have a few things signed by Doug. I have a wine bottle, believe it or not, that's signed by Doug Alt. And it says April 7th April 7th, 77 on it. But yeah, he was that was my one regret, not going to the 2001 reunion when they did all the events for the 25th for their 25th anniversary at the Sky Dome. He was there, I think, a few times signing for people, and I remember talking to somebody that went, and I'm like, after the fact, I'm like, I wish I would have gone there, because Alt was obviously one of my favorites, and it was a shame what happened to that guy. But yeah. What are you going to do? Just sucks, but
his first home run was hit in April 77 Exhibition Stadium. I'm curious if somebody still has that first home run in Blue Jays franchise history in their hands.
You know what? Somebody probably does, but I will bet you that they don't know what they have, or somebody from the Blue Jays has it and you just don't know about it. Like I kind of asked people about that actually, and I want to say that Howie Starkman might have it, but I'm not sure, to be honest with you. But it would be cool to track down, definitely, because that would be like the white whale collectible of all collectibles for the Blue Jays. Yeah.
There was something else I want to ask you about as well. I can't remember. Oh, now I remember what it was. I saw in your collection You have a 1977 first year hockey stick by the Toronto Blue
Huh.
Jays. How
Yeah.
hard was that to acquire?
I bought that online from a collector, and well, there's two. I have the one that's not signed by anybody. That was a stadium giveaway, and then I have another one that's signed by pretty much the entire '77 team, and that's the one that I bought from a collector that was willing to part with it. And but yeah, that's one of the coolest things that I have. I love anything like '77 team, the originals, right? Like I have pretty much a ball signed by every original Blue Jay, outside of obviously, like the fellows that have died, but with inscription that says original Blue Jay, right? So it's yeah, anything the original stuff. I absolutely love it. Yeah, the early '77 stuff.
Who's your favorite signature?
My favorite signature, like as in how it's signed, or just overall for my collection.
Overall for your collection.
Honestly, one of my favorites is the R. Howard Webster. R. Howard Webster owned 45% of the team when the Blue Jays were landed, right? Because it was CIBC had 10%. R. Howard Webster was like a bank financier from Montreal. He owned 45, and then Labatt owned 45% of the club. And I have a baseball signed by him, and it's very obscure to get that guy on a baseball. And I have it. I have a ball signed by him, and yeah, that's one of my favorites, just because it's so rare. It's, yeah, very obscure. Yeah.
How many baseballs do you have signed approximately?
If I had to guess, I'd say probably 350 to 400 now. Really detailed inscriptions, like some of these guys, the late Chuck Hartenstein, like he signed like pretty much like a book on here. But yeah, my biggest things are the autographed balls with the inscriptions, and my tickets. I'm really big into tickets now, so yeah.
One moment at an exhibition stadium, I remember, I think it was in 1980 or 81, when Billy Martin got ejected by the umpire and started kicking dirt on him. And
Oh,
it happened at exhibition stadium.
is that right? Yeah, I remember specifically, like when you talk about managers, the whole Earl Weaver thing when he forfeited the game in '77 to them and over the tarp, right? So it's funny what happens with some of those guys. I don't know if it was the exhibition stadium weather that brought out the hatred out of them or what, but some of them kind of seem to go there and just really get annoyed at just being there.
What's your favorite memorabilia collection from exhibition stadium?
Like my favorite item that I have from the X.
Yes.
Um, I have um, I have a sign that says 37. That was like a metal sign. I love that. And I also have like a couple stadium seats. I really like the metal one, and it's cool because Pete Pavese, who was the first Blue Jays GM, his dad Buzzy did a lot of stuff, and I think he was the GM for the Dodgers for a long time. And as a result, they got a lot of stuff from the Dodgers. And if you look really closely at the metal stadium seat at Exhibition Stadium, there's a Dodger symbol on it. And
Wow. Did not know that. Did not
yeah,
know that.
yeah. So yeah, I thought that was one of the cooler pieces that
I think I
I
just
think it's
lost call
going
there.
off.
That's okay. We're hanging there. Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, Paul. When my dad took us to games, we usually sat in the right field bleachers because they were only
Yeah.
like $2. Or
Oh yeah.
actually, I think the right field bleachers were 3. And then sometimes we sit in the grandstand, the
Yeah.
covered grandstand when the weather looked iffy, and I think they were $2 as well. Do you have any of those Dominion items as well? The Blue Jays did a lot of promotion giveaways back then, and I wish I had kept them and not played with them. But I was going to ask you, do you have any Dominion items or the Catelli little mini bats they gave out at the
Yeah.
X?
I have some of the Dominion bats. I have some like the coupon booklets that they would give out for like ticket vouchers and stuff like that. Um, Pretty much anything from like the '80s that was like produced that was like a promotional item or anything like that. I have. They did so many different things like pennants and like the giveaways with the different baseballs and the bats and the hats and the Mr. Sub bags and stuff like that. So anything like that, I pretty much have. Yeah. Yeah.
All right, and I'm going to wrap this up, Paul. What are some fun facts about your Toronto Blue Jays man cave and memorabilia collection, and some really interesting items you have?
Um, well, just like in terms of fun facts, like honestly, like all of the things that I collect either have to do with like a rare occurrence or like a historic moment. That's what I try to concentrate on. So, like first triple play, or the cycle games, of Gruber, Fry, and Biggio. Obviously the bat flip, anything that happened historically, I have I have in my collection, or I'm trying to like find. I'm so down to bare bones, like of things that I need. I have like a very obscure list. Is if I'm at the Toronto Expo, asking about items, they'll look at me like I have an arm growing on my forehead because they're just kind of like, why do you even want that, right? So yeah, I just try to collect the rarest of the rare, anything, Pearson Cup related, things that not a lot of people would even think of, you know what I mean? And that's what I kind of pride myself on, the fact that some of these things are so obscure and so rare that some people haven't even heard about them, but there's always a story behind it, right? And I love telling the stories, and I that's why I'd like, people to appreciate my collection as much as I do eventually, and hopefully one day that'll happen. So, yeah.
Do you have the entire Blue Jays uniform from back in the 80s, like the pullover jersey, the pants, and the hat?
Oh yeah, I got the pants. Yeah, I got the pants with the elastic band, and
Yes.
oh yeah, and the original, not the button down, but the actual pullovers.
Pullover.
Yeah, I have all that stuff. I have like a little mini closet over there, and the practice, the spring training, the blue jerseys that they had back then too. And it's funny because I'll go to the stadium and watch a game, and I'll know right away if something's like a knockoff or something's like not right, or it's incorrect or something like that, right? So kind of have an eye for stuff like that. But yeah, any of that old stuff I have. I like to customize a lot of stuff too. I have my own ideas in my head. I'll make like shirts and stuff like that. The roster from '77 opening day, or sayings. I'd rather be at Exhibition Stadium, or stuff like that. So yeah.
I really hope that organization doesn't go back to those black Jays jerseys, because I know now this new generation, they want to go back to the early 2000s. And I
Yeah.
thought the Jays uniforms for 2004 and 2011, there's no history of that. And I'm just so glad. Was it 2012 they went back to
Yeah.
the original uniforms? Obviously updated, but
Yeah.
to me, the Blue Jays should be the way they are for a long time with their
Totally.
uniforms.
I totally agree. Like the black uniforms, it didn't seem to suit them at all. I honestly, I hated that idea. And honestly, like when they replaced the original logo, the first time in '97, I was like appalled by the logo that they brought because it was so ugly. They had the maple leaf behind it. They had the obscure blue jay. It didn't look correct at all. And I'm looking at this thing and I'm like, that's what their emblem is now. So that's when I kind of got out of it for a bit, because I'm just kind of like, this isn't the Blue Jays that I remember, right? So when they started tinkering around with the original stuff, I didn't care for it. And like you said, with the uniforms and the black Jays, and until they went back to the originals, or like the original concept or something very similar, that's what I was happy with, because you can't really lose. You don't want to lose touch with your roots, right? And I think they kind of got burned for that for a bit, and I get it. They want to make money and try to do as many variations as they can to get people to buy jerseys, but some of the things that they did was just kind of like, yeah, no, this isn't for me at all. Yeah.
And have you been to the Rogers Center since they did the renovations last year? And what were your thoughts on the changes to the stadium?
Yeah, I went for the Jose Bautista level of excellence game in August. I loved the renos, especially for my boys. We actually sat in the 500 level, where they had a lot of like different things for them, and there's a whole like patio area that they could sit in, and you get the whole scope of the field. I really like what they did. I'm anxious to see how the changes that they're being made in the 100 level are going to be for next year, like kind of like by the dugout that they're kind of advertising. It'll be interesting, but yeah, I don't mind them. I get it. They kind of have to keep up with the times. So many stadiums, they're kind of almost like turning into their own bars and shopping malls within the the stadiums, right? So they kind of have to keep up with it, but I didn't mind them. I liked it, and my boys liked it, so that's all that matters. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going to wrap this up, Paul. I'm going to put you on the spot here. Major League Baseball postseason. You got Texas versus Houston in the American League, National League, Arizona and Philadelphia. Who do you see coming out of the American League, National League, and World Series winner for 2023?
I could see Houston. I just say Houston because I hate Texas, just based on the whole Blue Jays past with them. And honestly, I have a soft spot for Gurriel and Moreno. So I'd like to see Arizona go far in if not win the World Series, but I guess we'll see. So, but yeah.
I hate to say this, it's too early to tell yet, but that trade might go down as one of the worst in Blue Jays history in the next few years.
Yeah, don't get me started on that. They tried to sell the whole thing of Varshall's war, which was mostly his war as a catcher and not an outfielder. I think it was just a whole lot of just be like, oh, this is the guy, this is the guy, this is why we gave up so much. And you just kind of like, it came very apparent very, shortly thereafter. You're kind of like, what did we just do? And especially with Moreno. And I remember when that trade was announced, I was kind of like, I could see maybe Moreno, but like Gurriel too on top of it. No, I can't believe that they did that much. And they lost so much batting, like in terms of hitting when they lost Teo, and then they were, then they're willing to give up Moreno and Lourdes. It didn't make any sense to me. So whatever, I guess they're waiting to see it play out, but it sure as hell didn't this year.
It's going to be a very interesting offseason for the Toronto Blue Jays, not just with the more renovations to the Rogers Center, but what Shapiro and Atkins do to tweak or improve this roster going into 2024. And it's hard to believe it's going on 31 years since the Jays won a World Series. Obviously, not as long as Cleveland's drought or the Cubs or Boston's, but I think the fans in Toronto are kind of ready for a winner again in the postseason.
Definitely. I hope they can put something together. Like I said, based on Shapiro's presser, I didn't get that impression that they're going to do that much. I hope that they do, or at least they make some key moves that would be beneficial to the team for next year. But I guess we'll see. I just don't want it ending up in them, getting shut out at the wild card again. If it does, then obviously something major needs to happen.
Obviously, I'd love to have you back on again, Paul, again in the future. And I want to say thank you so much for coming on my show today. Where can my audience here in Guelph and internationally follow you on social media? And what are some other items that you're looking to add to your Blue Jays Man Cave in the future?
I have a couple videos on YouTube. That just, if you type in like Toronto Blue Jays Man Cave, there's a couple of them on there. They're like 10 minutes long. Mainly, it's my TikTok channel. It's Blue Jays History. That's where I kind of like post the daily what has happened in Blue Jays history with a related item that I might have from that day. I have to post one actually tonight. The game 1 of the '92 World Series, because that happened tomorrow in '92.
Hard to believe.
What's that?
Hard to believe how many years it's been.
I know. In terms of adding anything, I'd have to say that one of the biggest things that I'd love to add would be their ticket stub to their first spring training game, March 11th, 1977 in Dunedin. That'd be a very obscure and rare piece to my collection that I'd love to have. I have some 77 spring training ticket stubs, but I'd love to see that, because that's kind of like their first ever anything, you know what I mean? So yeah.
All right, Paul, I'm going to wrap this up, but hey, I want to say thank you for giving me an hour plus of your time, and to go back memory lane to CNE Stadium, Exhibition Stadium with Tom and Jerry. Unfortunately, we didn't talk about the TV guys like Don Chevrolet, Tony Kubak, and Fergie Oliver. If you were a fan of Fergie Oliver, he was on a podcast in July on Toronto Mike. If you want me to send you the link to Toronto Mike, he was on his episode in July. Fergie came on with his daughter Carrie and talked about his Blue Jays days for over an hour.
Yeah, I have. I'd love to actually hear that. I have a ball signed by Fergie, and he signed it. How about those Toronto Blue Jays?
That is awesome. And yeah, I will send you the link to Toronto Mike's podcast with Fergie, and I'll send you the link to my podcast show with Jerry Howarth as well. And I will send you the link as well, probably tomorrow, to WQEE 99.1 FM when our show airs there as well. But Paul, I want to say thank you so much for coming on here, and really enjoyed getting to talk to you. I really enjoy your TikTok page. Again, everybody, you can follow Paul at Blue Jays history as well, Paul.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Thanks for the invite. And yeah, if you want to have me back anytime, awesome. This is awesome.
All right, Paul. Well, have a great evening. And I will be posting audio and video links of our show very soon to my social media pages as well. And as always, go Blue Jays. And the next time I have you come on, we're going to have to talk about the Blue Jays original song and OK Blue Jays, which was the second song in 1983.
Definitely. I have a whole backstory of all that stuff too. Yeah, that's awesome.
All right, Paul. Thank you so much for coming on live with CDP Sports Talk. And as always, go Jays.
Go Jays, go. Thank you.
Thanks, Paul. All right, guys, I hope you enjoyed season 6, episode 49 of Live with CDP Sports Talk with my guest tonight, Paul Bychko. He has probably one of the biggest Blue Jays memorabilia collections in the world, with over 10,000 items as well. And before we wrap up this show, I'm going to show you a clip of Paul's YouTube channel of his Blue Jays man cave, and the video is about 10 minutes. So you'll see how much Blue Jay stuff he has in his man cave. Just bear with me for 1 second, and we're going to play this courtesy of Paul's YouTube channel.
This is my Blue Jays man cave. All right, there's Ernie up here, door poster. Got pennant of the was an error pennant of them saying that they were in the World Series in 1985, and they weren't, obviously. I got a display of the Blue Jays ticket stubs to the 25th year and all their schedules up to the 25th year. Got a Dave Steve poster here and a couple of the 80s Jays posters, some inserts from the Toronto Sun and whatnot. And I had this made. It was showing that, this is my new man cave, established 2015. So. Anyways, on this wall coming down, I got a display of the 85 ALCS team, a couple ticket stubs the day they won the pennant, and again, a error ticket stub saying they were in the World Series. Had this made. It was taking me up to the ball game in the Blue Jays font, kind of personalized for the Blue Jays and whatnot. Some error ticket stubs as well. Pearson Cup poster and a couple programs and ticket stubs. The old newspapers from 85, little record album there. I got this little intercom. Okay, Blue Jays. Over here, I have a display of all the Jays that I've met in my life, and some other random things, Babe Ruth's grave and Gary Carter and whatnot. I got the little display of the scoreboard at the X, all my lapel pins and little pin buttons. A little mini mock closet of all my Blue Jays shirts and jerseys that I haven't been able to put up on my wall. This is at my wedding. Everybody signed it that went to my wedding. I thought it was pretty cool. I got a piece of corn from the Field of Dreams there. So I'm a big Field of Dreams fan. Anyways, so my favorite player is Dave Steep, so I put him first, and a couple of the other pitchers here. So I got a newspaper of his no-hitter, ticket stub to it, and his glove. And I got Jimmy Key in the shadow box, some pennants here throughout the years. Another error World Series pennant. I got here one of my favorite items is baseball that was signed by all the Blue Jays that I watched growing up. Pretty much everybody's on that ball. Oh. And I had this baseball card table made of the Blue Jays. Just it's got the hard top on there. It's kind of hard to see. My wife cut up some of the cards, but hey, what are you gonna do? If you look on the TV, I'm actually watching the first game in Blue Jays history that I have on DVD. Just moving over here, I got a little picture of the Elysian Fields first game I ever played. I thought that was pretty cool, and I've got a bunch of replica of all the most expensive or rare cards in baseball history.
Over here, I got a little shadow box of all the items that I had when I was first collecting. My little glove, and actually, I got a ticket stub to my birthday, which is kind of hard to find. I got my picture of Garth Orge there. That was the nicest stance in baseball history. I love it. On this bookshelf, I just got a bunch of books and programs and calendars and media guides and whatnot, old VHS tapes, CD-ROMs, and whatnot, a bunch of books about baseball. Up here, I got the Hall of Fame shadow box, Alomar and Gillick. I got my shadow boxes, Clancy and Witt's book and his VHS tape there, his wristband, mask. Pretty much everything I have here is signed. So my little 77 wall, I got the old calendar and a couple Blue Jays that, had something to do with the early club, the first win, Jerry Johnson and Ron Fairley, Steve Bowling. And over here, I got a 8x10 signed by BJ Birdie and for 2 first basemen. It goes in order by position, pitchers all the way around to the closer Hinkie over there. But first baseman, my Upshawn McGriff. Over here, I got photo balls that were signed, a bunch of 77 related items. Had this jersey signed by Gillick, Paul Godfrey, Howie Starkman, Don McDougall, and Paul Beeston. Pretty much all the little patches from over the years I had onto the jersey I put on there. I love this item. It's the ballot from when they were naming the Toronto Blue Jays. I thought that was cool, so I put that in there as well. Some ticket stubs to the game, newspaper. Is This Heaven? I had that put together because that's one of my favorite quotes from Field of Dreams. And just got some signed photos down here and some newspapers again from the first game. Bunch of beer cans throughout the years from Labatt Blue. Tony Fernandez shadow box programmed to the first game in spring training. If you look up here, I got all my caps along the beam here. And then just all the hats that I've collected throughout the years and whatnot. On this little wall here, I got a letter that was written from Paul Beeston, congratulating myself and my wife on our wedding. So that was pretty cool. My wife had that done for me. Over here I got a shadow box, the Platoon, Garth Orge, France Mullenix, George Bell, one of my favorites. His book, starting lineup figure and whatnot. And over here is pretty much all the main collectibles that I've collected over the years. So from cup shot glasses, old pop cans, mugs, bobbleheads. There's wristbands and banks and coins and wallets, lighters, pencils, wristbands and belt buckles and stamps, toy cars. Everything's pretty much in there. It's everything in this room is pretty much, I've been collecting since I was 5 years old. I tried to focus on the exhibition stadium years, 1977, 89. I have some World Series things, but they're not as sentimental as the exhibition stadium stuff to me. So over here, I got Mosby Barfield here to finish the best outfield in baseball. Well, I got Bell over there, Mosby Barfield, and with Mosby, I got the Shaker Rap album that he signed for me and that he did in the 80s. And this is over here is pretty much my exhibition stadium section. I got the old pennant that they gave out at the last, or that you had to purchase from the last game. A couple prints, lithographs that were done by Les Tate, and then some exhibition stadium chairs. I got the 2 plastic and the solid one, and I have 2 more of the plastic, but I never put them out because I need the chair or the arm brackets. Got an old shadow box of all the old programs from the last game at the X, last giveaway with the memories book and the ticket stub to the last game. An old print that I like for exhibition stadium, which are like cartoon figures and whatnot. That was cool. I got a bowling ball over here, which is a pretty rare item that I found. I thought it was pretty quirky, so I got it. Cabbage Patch doll as well. Down here, I got a little advertisement from Jerry Halpern. He did the Benjamin Moore Where Are They Now? I had that signed by him. And over here is a hockey stick that was a stadium giveaway in 77. And I got a shadow box here of this one's empty still because I got my Canada jerseys for hockey. I'm gonna put in there, but this one I got Babe Ruth in there because he was well, obviously he's a legend, so I wanted to put him in there because he's one of my idols. And that was actually signed by his granddaughter that I met at the Canadian Baseball Hall of Fame. She was really nice. So there's a picture of me when I was young, and there's my picture of my son that was just born a year ago, and put him on the Blue Jays jersey there. And moving over here, I have get the whole scope of the room over here, but I got just finished off Mark Eichhorn and his Schwartz Mustard and Tom Henke, the Terminator. I had to put him last because he closes the show. And I put a bunch of managers up to Cito on the wall here, pretty much every manager up to Cito, and then the Scout Epi and the old CEO Peter Hardy and Bavazzi and Pat Gillick who started it, and just some random players throughout the history that I liked: Rico Cardi, Otto Velez, Griffin, Luis Leal, Garcia, Doyle Alexander, and Rick Leach. This is a lithograph that I purchased where you're supposed to stare at it for a while and something's supposed to pop out, but I haven't figured out what it is yet. And a poster from the '89 AL East year. Over here I have another Dave Steve glove here that I put on the wall, more caps along the beam, and then I got this here too, which is my one of my favorite items, which is the baby blue. I pretty much signed by all of the players that I grew up watching. So this is one of my prized possessions. I love. I got this jersey when I was about 6 or 7 years old, so I thought it'd be nice to get all of the Jays signed on it. So I just need a couple managers still. I think I still need Jimmy Williams and Bobby Cox on there. So, but other than that, that's pretty much the Blue Jays man cave. Get a scope of the whole room. There's a lot on the walls and whatnot. The whole goal was to to pretty much take all of the space up on all of the walls. So yeah, it's been referred to as a pretty good Blue Jays museum. So it's kind of what I'm going for. Anyways. So anyways, thanks very much. That's my Blue Jays man cave.
All right, that was courtesy of Paul Bychko's YouTube. Hey guys, I am sorry for the technical difficulty. When I clicked off the YouTube to end Paul's YouTube channel video of the Blue Jays Man Cave, I accidentally cut myself off of here. So I apologize, but I want to say thank you so much to my guest, Paul Bychko, for coming on here tonight and talking about his Blue Jays memorabilia collection. I've never seen one so good in all my time. And I think he's got to be one of the number one collectors out there as well. And if Paul's still watching this, I was at the second last ever game at Exhibition Stadium on, I believe, Saturday, May 26, 1989. I sat in the left field seats behind the Blue Jays dugout, and the White Sox won that game 5-3. Also, the last game, which was on a Sunday, the Jays won 7-5 in extra innings. I believe Steve Lyons of the Chicago White Sox took second base, and I'm curious. I got to ask Paul this in the future. Where did all the bases go as well? And the last baseball that was hit out of the ballpark by George Bell. That's as well. So I hope to have Paul back on my show again as a guest in the future as well. And it was great talking to him about CNE Stadium and his memorabilia collection as well. And I want to say thank you to everybody for watching this live stream tonight and also on my audio platforms as well. And I want to just let you guys know my next podcast show is coming up tomorrow. Next Live with CDP Sports Talk, sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet here in Guelph, and weeknights at 8 on WQEE 99.1 FM will be tomorrow night, Tuesday, October 17th at 5 p.m. with my guest, Greg Tranter. He is an author of his latest book about the NBA's defunct Buffalo Braves from A to Z, and he's also a historian and curator and follows Buffalo sports. So tomorrow night we're going to talk to Greg about the Buffalo Bills, the Buffalo Sabres, and mostly about his new book that he co-written with Bud Bailey called the A to Z of the Buffalo Braves of the National Basketball League, who played in Buffalo in the 70s before they moved out to San Diego to become the San Diego Clippers. Then they are now the LA Clippers. So Buffalo has a history with the National Basketball League, and I'm excited to have Greg Tranter on my show tomorrow night at 5 o'clock as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk is a weekly sports and entertainment talk show hosted by yours truly, Chris Pame. It's on weeknights at 8 p.m. to 9 p.m. Eastern on WQEE 99.1 FM, The Key, the home of Southern sports and talk, the heartbeat of Atlanta. Our radio station's website is wqeefm.radio12345.com as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk is live streamed on these platforms: YouTube, Facebook, Twitter /X, Twitch, and LinkedIn as well. Also, you can follow me on my website, beacons.ai/Chris D. Pame. Live with CDP Sports Talk, again, is sponsored by Barry Cullen Chevrolet Dealership here in Guelph at 905 Woodlawn Road West in the Guelph Auto Mall. Check out barrycullen.com for the newest selection of new and pre-owned GM vehicles. And also, guys, you can gear up for fall at Barry Cullen Chevrolet right now with a 2023 Silverado 1500 pickup truck for 0.99% financing for up to 60 months. And eligible Costco members can receive a $750 bonus on select trucks. More information at barrycullen.com as well. Also, you guys can follow me on TikTok at Live with CDP. That's at Live with CDP on TikTok. Check out my latest interviews with Ryan Dinwiddie, the head coach of the Grey Cup champion Toronto Argonauts, and quarterback Brian Scott of the Toronto Argonauts as well. And speaking of the Argonauts, 14-2 this year, and they have 2 more games left on the road against Saskatchewan and Ottawa, and a chance to tie or break their franchise record of 15 wins in the season set by the 96-97 Argonauts team as well. So thank you to the Toronto Argonauts organization and Chris Bilnovich for having me this season as a media member. So please check out my interviews with Ryan Dinwiddie and Brian Scott and David Moore-Sudi. That's on my TikTok page as well. StreamYard is the official live stream provider of Live with CDP Sports Talk. If you're into webinars or podcasting such as yours truly, check out StreamYard.com as well. Live with CDP Sports Talk, the audio version is available on these platforms: iHeartRadio, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Spotify for podcasters, Apple Podcasters, Breaker Podcasts, Radio Public, Spotify, Castbox, LinkedIn, Pandora, and tuned in. And again, weeknights at 8 on WQEE 99.1 FM. Finally, you guys can email or text Live with CDP Sports Talk at cpame19@gmail.com, or you can text the show at 519-820-7188. If you have comments, questions, suggestions, love to hear your feedback. And again, I apologize for the technical difficulty. I accidentally cut myself off for about a minute after I ended Paul's video. But again, I want to say thank you to Paul Bychko, Toronto Blue Jays super fan, and has one of their hugest, if not the biggest, memorabilia collection as a Blue Jay fan, with over 10,000 items, for coming on today again. And thank you everybody for watching this live streamed and also on audio. And also, guys, we have some Major League Baseball playoffs going on. We got the American League Championship Series between Texas and Houston going on right now. Game 2, Texas is up 1-0 in the series. And the National League Championship Series starts tonight between the upstart Arizona Diamondbacks against those Philadelphia Phillies, who are managed by Canadian Rob Thompson out of Sarnia, Ontario. and have former Detroit Tigers GM and president Dave Dombrowski with the Phillies and former Tiger Nick Castellanos as well. That game should be at 8 o'clock tonight again as well. But again, thank you to Paul for coming on, and thank you everybody for watching and listening to Live with CDP Sports Talk. We'll see you guys tomorrow night at 5 o'clock with season 6, episode 50, with my guest, Greg Tranter. And we're going to talk some Buffalo Braves, NBA, and his latest new book, co-written with Bud Bailey. Have a great evening, everybody, and enjoy the Major League Baseball games. Talk to you tomorrow night.